Are you tired of your team not having boons? Do you watch in despair as everyone around you falls to damage they should easily be avoiding? Do you lie in bed at night dreaming of carrying your entire team to victory, even as you're tanking the most challenging bosses in Guild Wars 2? Well, you're in luck. Today, we're covering the majestic Heal Quickness Herald. Welcome back, everyone. Heal Quickness Herald has been one of my favourite defensive support builds for quite a while now. Here, you have the easy to learn gameplay that comes with Herald, as well as truly insane healing potential. You can also trade off some of this healing to grant huge amounts of AoE stability, while still offering fantastic healing. Not only that, you have an utterly trivial time keeping up permanent might, fury, protection, regeneration, swiftness, and quickness. Normally, Power Quickness Herald needs at a minimum 25% boon duration to function. Today, we're pumping that all the way to 100%. To top all this off, Heal Quickness Herald is insanely durable, with access to blocks on each of our main weapon sets, and the ability to flat out ignore incoming damage with the Glint healing skill. All this comes together to make this one of the easiest to play healing and tanking builds in the game. So with that, let's jump into it. Before we jump into the detail about everything Heal Herald related, we'll quickly cover off on where your healing actually comes from. Your regeneration you pump out from Facet of Light will heal for a ton due to it being buffed by Elder's Respite. Generous Abundance will cause you to heal allies whenever you consume Facet skills and use any other legend skills. Your Staff Auto Attack will heal allies at the end of the chain, and this goes really fast when you're under Quickness, which with this build you will always have. Staff 2 and 4 give some nice burst healing, with Staff 4 also granting some additional Condi Cleanse. Shield 4 will give you a burst of healing and grant protection to you and your team. The trait Healer's Gift will make your dodge roll heal nearby allies, and having your Ventari tablet active will pulse healing to nearby allies for a surprising amount. Natural Harmony will also offer a huge chunk of burst healing, especially if it's the first skill you use after summoning your tablet. It's also on a super short cooldown. Now with that, let's cover off on the weapons. For our weapons, our typical loadout will be Staff, Mace, and Shield. Staff is what you'll be swapping to when you need some burst healing, Condi Cleanse, and catastrophic levels of CC. Your Staff Auto Attack will simply deal some strike damage and heal nearby allies on the third attack in the chain. This pumps out a surprising amount of healing and is a key part of your sustained healing. Mender's Rebuke will deal some strike damage, heal allies after a short delay, and heal even more if you manage to strike an enemy. Warding Rift will grant you a super handy 2-second block, which can come in clutch if you find yourself without a dodge roll. Renewing Wave will grant you a nice chunk of burst healing, remove 2 conditions from allies, and is also a blast finisher to boot. Surge of the Mist, as I will mention on every Revenant guide from now until the end of time, provides godlike levels of CC. You'll charge forward, attack 9 times, and deal 150 Defiance Bar damage for each strike. This is an insane level of CC. Use it. Mace is included in this build only for its ability to blast might with the 2 and 3 skills. Your Mace auto attack chain will deal some strike damage and inflict torment and poison. It's not overly relevant for this build, but use it whenever you have nothing better to do. Searing Fissure will deal some strike damage, inflict burning, and lay down a fire field. We'll be blasting this for might with our next skill. Echo Interruption will inflict some torment and weakness, and lay down 3 impacts in a line, with each of them acting as a blast finisher. When you pair this with Searing Fissure, you'll typically grant 7 stacks of might from one round of this combo. It's only 7 because the last blast finisher usually occurs too far away from you, and you also grant an additional stack of might whenever you apply boons due to shared empowerment. This is incredibly useful in helping your team upkeep 25 stacks of might. Shield should be your default offhand weapon when using Mace. You have access to a very nice healing skill and an absolutely insane block, which gives you yet another way to avoid mechanics. Envoy of Exuberance will grant protection and heal both you and your allies, which is very handy for topping off your healing. Crystal Hibernation will block attacks for 3 seconds, which is an obscenely long block by the way, and allow you to regenerate health. This is one of the skills that lets you just ignore one-shot mechanics like the Mind Crush on Deimos, and makes your tanking life so much easier. If you need additional CC, I use this all the time in Fractals, then feel free to swap out Shield for Offhand Axe. This will trade the excellent defense and group support of Shield with some extra mobility and CC. Frigid Blitz will throw an axe at your target, inflict chill, and once your axe reaches your target, you'll teleport to them and deliver a larger strike. This skill is exceptionally useful to move around arenas and chase after bosses that have an annoying tendency to move around. Temporal Rift will inflict some torment, deal damage, and pull enemies in to inflict CC. This is a very useful skill to group up mobs for your team to burst down. Now for our skills. Your Glint skills consist entirely of Facets, which you can toggle on to pulse boons to nearby allies. You can then consume them for additional effects, and with the trait Draconic Echo, will also apply Quickness. This legend is critical for any Quickness Herald build, so never leave home without it. Facet of Nature is a massively loaded skill, and has different effects depending on your current legend. There's a lot to cover here, so for now, I'll just focus on the effects that are relevant to heal Quickness Herald. The passive effect while in Glint will grant you an extra flat 20% duration to any boons you apply. This is on top of the standard 100% boon duration cap. When you consume the Facet of Nature while in Glint, it will increase the duration of all your allies' boons by 2 seconds. When we consume this facet, we'll generally always want to do so when we're in Glint, for this massive increase in boon duration. The passive effect in Ventari will heal nearby allies once every 3 seconds. When you consume the Facet in Ventari, you'll cleanse 2 conditions from nearby allies and heal for each condition removed. The passive effect in Jalus will reduce incoming damage to allies by 10%. This is separate to protection and the 10% damage reduction you get from Ascended Foods. If you start stacking these modifiers, you can greatly reduce the pressure on your team and have much smoother boss kills. This is a really underrated skill. If you consume the Facet while in Jalus, you'll grant 2 stacks of stability to your allies. However, you'll generally use Inspiring Reinforcement for this. Facet of Light will pulse regeneration, and when you consume it, will convert all incoming damage to healing for 3 seconds. You can use this to flat out ignore mechanics that would otherwise down you. Facet of Strength will pulse Might and grant you a 15% damage increase for 10 seconds and deal some damage after you consume it. Like all versions of Quickness Herald builds, we're going to want to maximize the uptime of this buff as much as possible. So this will be the first thing that we use when we enter Glint, and one of the last things we activate before we leave it. Facet of Elements will pulse Swiftness and pop down a damaging AoE that applies Weakness, Shield, and Burning. A very nice damaging skill. Facet of Darkness will pulse Fury, and when you consume it, will apply 10 stacks of Vulnerability, reveal nearby enemies, and apply Blindness. It's also a stun break, which is super handy. Facet of Chaos will pulse Protection, and when you consume it, will knock back enemies and grant super speed to allies. This will be one of your key CC skills, so try and save this for CC bars if you know one's going to be coming up soon. Ventari will be your default legend choice if you don't need to provide stability with Jalus. Here, you have access to some insane healing skills, long-lasting projectile protection, condition cleanse, and great CC. One important thing to touch on before we chat about the Ventari skills is how to empower your tablet. When you take a look at the tooltips for all the Ventari skills, you'll see a section that tells you about the sweet effects that you get when your tablet is empowered. Now, Connor, I hear you asking, how on earth do I empower my tablet? Well, your first tablet will be empowered the first time you swap to Ventari stance. You'll also be able to reapply this status once you resummon your tablet after destroying it with your elite skill, Energy Expulsion. Your empowered status will be used up on the first skill you use after this, so choose wisely. Project Tranquility will summon your Ventari tablet. It'll automatically summon when you enter Ventari as well. You'll empower your tablet, and you can also move it around freely. This allows you to heal your allies at range if they need to leave the group stack for whatever reason. Very useful on fights like Slothazor and Matthias. Protective Solace will summon a barrier that blocks enemy projectiles. This barrier can be kept up for an obscenely long period of time and can completely trivialize some encounters with lots of projectile pressure. If your tablet is empowered, activating the barrier will also grant protection. Just remember, this is not a projectile reflect like Wall of Reflection on Guardian, so don't get the two mixed up. Natural Harmony will heal allies around the tablet after a short delay. This skill is on a super short cooldown and has fantastic burst healing, which makes your healing output on Ventari completely unhinged. When the tablet is empowered, you'll heal for even more, as well as restore endurance for nearby allies. Purifying Essence will remove 3 conditions from nearby allies and heal for each condition removed. Again, it's on a very short cooldown, so it's a fantastic way to alleviate condition pressure from your team. When empowered, you'll remove an additional condition. Energy Expulsion is a really stacked skill. You'll destroy your tablet, heal nearby allies, remove a condition, and knock down enemies for 3 seconds, for some amazing break bar damage. It's also a blast finisher for good measure. When empowered, you'll knock down enemies for an additional second for even more Defiance bar damage. You'll need to resummon your tablet if you want to use more Ventari skills before swapping back to Glint. However, this will empower your tablet once again so you can get some sweet buffs on your next Ventari skill. If you need to provide stability to your team, feel free to swap out Ventari for Chalice. You'll lose access to a fair amount of healing, so you'll need to rely more on the healing you get from activating your legend skills, as well as your star skills to keep up the healing on your team. Soothing Stone will remove 5 conditions from you, heal you, and grant you resolution, which grants you some nice benefits from the Retribution trait line we'll be chatting about soon. Inspiring Reinforcement is the main reason that you'll be bringing Chalice over Ventari. You'll lay down a yellow brick road and pulse stability to anyone who stands on it. If you activate this as soon as you enter Chalice, and again just before you exit, you'll have a huge amount of stability uptime for your team, letting them ignore mechanics and greed for DPS. Force Engagement will launch a chain at your target and any enemies around them. If it connects, it will slow and taunt them, which is fantastic for some soft CC. You also take less damage from enemies that get taunted from this skill as well. This damage reduction is massive at 33%. Stack this with protection and you won't even notice them attacking you. Vengeful Hammers will summon hammers to spin around you, letting you Beyblade your way through enemies. You'll also take 20% less strike and condition damage as well. Even more damage reductions that we can stack on top of each other. Rite of the Great Dwarf is an expensive but stacked skill. You'll break stun for nearby allies and grant them an insane 50% damage reduction for 5 seconds. Again, stack this on top of protection and enemies will barely tickle you. Now for our traits. Retribution is basically here to give you access to the Resolution boon, which then grants you some extra handy bonuses. Spiritual Reckoning will grant you protection when you use an elite skill. You'll be using your Glint elite fairly frequently, and your Ventari elite skill is great for some extra CC, or if you have pulled some extra energy that you need to burn. Resolute Evasion will grant you some additional resolution after you dodge. Determined Resolution will cause you to take 10% reduced strike damage whenever you have resolution on you. This is going to make surviving and tanking much easier, freeing up your attention to focus on healing. Vicious Reprisal gives you a lot of benefits whenever you have resolution. You'll deal increased damage, your resolution will last longer, and you'll gain might whenever you strike foes. When this is paired with your Herald trait, Shared Empowerment, each time you grant yourself might, you'll also apply might to nearby allies. This is going to make it much easier to upkeep 25 stacks of might on your teammates. Salvation is where the bulk of your healing comes from. Here, we have a few alternative traits that you can sub in for specific situations. I'll touch on these after we go through the default choices. Healer's Gift will let you heal nearby allies after you dodge. Invoking Harmony will grant you a massive 20% increase for outgoing healing for 10 seconds each time you swap legends. Words of Censure will cause you to heal nearby allies whenever you blind, immobilize, or CC an enemy. Serene Rejuvenation will grant you an additional massive 20% healing modifier and cause your Ventari skills to grant additional boons when you activate them. The resistance that you get from activating your Ventari elite skill can be particularly useful, especially when you need to avoid being feared on fights like Slothazor. Generous Abundance will cause you to heal allies around you whenever you use a legend skill. This healing gets increased even further when you use a Ventari skill. This trait allows you to heal your allies whenever you consume one of your Facet skills in Glint. Now for some alternatives. Eluding Nullification will grant you some extra condition cleanse each time you dodge. Great for some more condition heavy encounters. Resilient Spirit will grant you barrier for each unique boon you have. This only applies for up to 5 boons, but this can really help your survivability if you need to tank. Unyielding Devotion will grant you a massive 15% damage reduction after you heal yourself or an ally. Once you stack this with protection and determined resolution, you become obscenely tanky. Fantastic choice if you need to tank and you don't need the extra healing. In Herald, Elder's Respite will cause your regeneration to heal for 20% more, and given that you'll be pulsing permanent regeneration for your subgroup, this will result in a huge amount of healing. Shared Empowerment will cause you to grant might to nearby allies whenever you apply boons to yourself or your team. This is going to help you upkeep 25 might on your team. Draconic Echo makes any Quickness Herald build function. It will let you apply quickness to yourself and your team whenever you consume a facet. You'll also retain the Facet passive effects for 6 seconds after consuming them. Now it's time to chat about our gear and food. Gearing for Quickness Herald is actually a tricky question. Quickness Herald at its core doesn't need a lot of boon duration to function, although here more is generally better. So we can make the build work with a wide range of gear. The main thing you'll want to think about is whether you want to tank or not. First up, if you're not interested in tanking, just run Harrier's gear in every slot. This will make sure that you hit 100% boon duration for maximum boons for you and your friends, while cranking your healing power and minimizing your toughness. A full set of Minstrel's gear will work just fine, but you won't hit 100% boon duration, but you'll still have plenty to perform your Heal Herald duties. You'll be rocking over 2100 toughness and 1800 vitality, so you'll have a very easy time tanking. A lot of tanking classes like to use Minstrel's gear as well, so you may have an easier time swapping gear between your classes this way. A full Minstrel set will also give you a higher level of healing power compared to Givers, which we'll chat about next. A full set of Givers gear will crank your toughness to the absolute maximum. You'll end up with almost 2400 toughness and easily reach 100% boon duration. You will have lower vitality, but that's not too much of an issue at this level of toughness. My preference when tanking is to run a mix of Minstrels and Givers gear. This lets you run some of the HP from Minstrels, the insane toughness from Givers, and lets you reach 100% boon duration for maximum boon uptime. You can do this by running Givers armor, Givers weapons, a Givers amulet, and having the rest of your trinkets being Minstrel stats. I'll include all these versions in the description below, so you can pick whichever one is right for you. My recommendation though would be Harrier's gear if you don't want to tank, a mix of Givers and Minstrel's gear if you want to have the peak Herald tanking experience, full Minstrel's gear if you want to tank but want to swap your gear more freely between classes, and last, a full Givers set if you just want one gear stat for simplicity, insane toughness, and 100% boon duration. For your rune, as you'd expect for any healing build, take Rune of the Monk. Here you get extra healing power and boon duration, as well as a massive healing modifier which can reach up to 20% depending on how often you apply boons to allies. For our sigils, we're going to be taking Sigil of Concentration and Transference. This will give us 10% extra boon duration to help us reach the boon duration cap, as well as an extra 10% healing modifier. For our consumables, we'll be taking the Bowl of Fruit Salad with Mint Garnish. This gives us extra healing power, concentration, and yet another 10% healing modifier. We'll also take Bountiful Maintenance Oil as our utility. This will grant us an additional healing modifier based on our healing power and concentration. This utility is insane, and you're griefing your team if you're not using it. For some perspective, with a full set of Harrier's gear, this utility alone will grant you an extra 18% outgoing healing. Absolute madness. Due to this being a healing build, you don't really have a strict rotation to worry about. You're more focused on playing reactively, making sure to keep people's health topped up, and watching for mechanics that will chunk your party's health bars. However, when wearing Glint, we're going to want to pump out as much quickness as we can. This way, we can build up as much of a quickness buffer as possible, so we can swap to Ventari or Jalus and still maintain our quickness uptime. So how do I do this, I hear you asking? Basically, spam your Facets off cooldown, with some slight refinement and tweaks that we'll go through now. First, activate Facet of Nature and leave it alone. This way your team benefits from the passive boon extension while in Glint. Then we're going to activate and consume our 3 main facets: Facet of Strength, Facet of Elements, and Facet of Darkness. We'll then activate Facet of Light and Facet of Chaos. We'll leave these alone for now so that we can pulse Regeneration and Protection. This also lets us activate them if we need the healing from Facet of Light or the CC from Facet of Chaos. We'll then wait for our facets to come off cooldown, consume Facet of Nature for the manual boon extension, activate and consume our main facets again, Facet of Strength, Facet of Elements, and Facet of Darkness. We'll then consume Facet of Chaos. Then you can legend swap if you need to. If you don't need the extra healing or stability, feel free just to chill out in Glint and keep spamming your facets. With this level of boon duration, you'll have an incredibly easy time keeping up 100% quickness. If you need to swap to Ventari, just use your healing, projectile barrier, and Condi Cleanse depending on what you need for a specific encounter. If you need stability, swap to Jalus and activate Inspiring Reinforcement. I like to activate it once again, just as I'm exiting Jalus, so my team can have at least some extra stability when I'm not in Jalus. In terms of which weapons to use, Mace and Shield should be your default choice, because you can blast a huge amount of might with a combination of Mace 2 and Mace 3. Without Mace, Heal Herald is going to struggle to keep up 25 might by itself. However, if someone else in your team is providing just a little bit of might, you shouldn't have any issues camping on Staff for the increased healing output. This will give you easy access to the burst healing from Staff 2 and 4, the block from 3, and the Omega CC from Staff 5. Just play around with the weapons during each encounter and you'll find what works best for you. Always swap to Staff though if a break bar pops up. The CC from Staff 5 alone is one of Revenant's biggest selling points. At last, we've arrived at the end of our journey. Together, we have basked in the magnificence of Heal Quickness Herald. Here, we have a build that is one of the easiest times imaginable, keeping up permanent might, fury, protection, regeneration, swiftness, and quickness. It's incredibly easy to play, has outstanding healing and stability access, and you have all the blocks you'll ever need to make tanking an absolute breeze. Of all the healing builds I've tried, Heal Herald sticks out as one of the most reliable, relaxing, and effective ones that I've tried. Give this build a crack, I know for a fact you're going to love it. Thank you all so much for watching. If you want to hang out and watch me practice the classes we'll be covering in our upcoming build guides, I stream on Twitch at least twice a week. I hope you enjoy the pure magic that is Heal Quickness Herald, and I'll catch you all next time. Cheers.